Okay, so this is the first video I've ever really made to talk about um, personality and Myers-Briggs stuff, but I saw your video about what it's the challenges of being an ENTP female, and I'm an ENTP male, so I've actually been thinking the other way around. So I thought, hey, it would be kind of cool to get your take on this and um, maybe start a little discussion. I don't know. Maybe other people are going to join in. I don't know. Anyway, um, so just a little bit about myself. I'm from Portland, Oregon, born and raised. Well, actually, no. I was born in Provo, Utah. Actually raised Mormon. Have an ISTJ dad who is very similar to your dad from how you described. Um, um, Very linear, and we struggle with or I have struggled in my life connecting with my dad, especially because I have an SJ brother who is very organized, very methodical, very much like my dad, right? And I'm kind of perceived by my dad as being kind of flaky, as being kind of non-committal, as being kind of abstract. Um, so there has been struggles in that way. I want to talk about this though. The because of course I'm sure I could ramble on about so many things, which is so characteristic of ENTPs. But the one thing I wanted to focus on was kind of the masculinity and femininity. So as I was watching your video, I thought about identifying what it is about our personality type that you would consider masculine. Because to be intuitive is feminine. To be sensing is masculine. To be perceptive is a feminine trait. To be judgment, action-oriented, make a decision, very masculine. I'm not sure whether to be extroverted or introverted is more of a masculine, feminine. I'm going to lean towards extroversion being more of a feminine. When I think of just your classic man, I think of a guy who can be in the woods alone, chopping his wood, not needing to talk to anyone. He's just doing his work, So I see it as being more of an introverted trait. However, to be an extroverted thinker and an intuitive thinker, especially if thinking is your strongest component, this is very masculine. Thinking over feeling is very masculine. And so it's confusing because a lot of people who are strong thinkers, even if they have a lot of feminine qualities to them, to their personality, it's very mistaken as, oh, you're a very male person. Which I run into that problem. Okay, now check this out. So I have had all female bosses, all right? And they have struggled with me because I come across as very overpowering. But in reality, I'm very sensitive. I have a fear of human disconnection, right? And I'm afraid that because I come on too strong, because I have so much intensity, because I am kind of weird, I'm a weird guy. I'm afraid that people are going to perceive that, or as me being too dominant, and they withdraw or they disconnect from me. Because I'm an extrovert, I really thrive off of interaction and connection with people. So just with that as a little background, moving on to my experience with masculinity and femininity. So I was working after I graduated, doing my undergraduate degree. I went and got a job at a company called Underwriters Laboratories. You might have seen them. They have that little UL sticker inside the circle on the back of like every electronic thing that you see. And what they do is they do safety testing for products. So like everything like Apple, Google, General Electric, Sony, Samsung, I mean, you name it, it would come to me. I manage the West Coast territory. So I would be able to, I was on the front end of a lot of innovation. And being on the front end of a lot of innovation opened my eyes to the innovative process, with how it works. I got to see so many different companies and how they did things, right? And it was very intriguing. So I started asking myself, well, who are the innovators? Who are the people who can see things that haven't been done before? And if you notice, the ENTP type is seen as, or often described as, the visionary, right? So I became very intrigued with the innovative process and what are visions, you know, the people who have claimed to have visions. You know, how does that happen? What's the process? So I started studying the innovators like Steve Jobs, you know, geez, I could list a lot of them. Fred Smith, Ted Turner, Nolan Bushnell, Solomon Price. And these are just modern day innovators. But I mean, you could go back to Einstein, to Mozart, to, I mean, just the people who changed things, okay? You notice very few of them have college degrees. Very few of them have been able to go through the system. It's like they succeeded in spite of the system, not because of the system. So I was also doing my MBA, my graduate degree in human resources management. I was very curious, is there a way that we can create a system that recognizes the innovative type, right? What are they going to look like? If you had a pile of 50 resumes and Steve Jobs was in there, would you know to pick them out, you know? Because you would find someone without a college degree, without extensive work experience in one place. You'd find someone in the interview, if he even made it into the interview, who is coming to talk about ideas. He's not coming to look his best and put on his tie and, you know, put on this fake front. He's going to come in and maybe challenge you in an interview. And a lot of HR departments aren't aware of that, how that works. So I became very interested in this, and I tried so hard to talk about this with people at UL. Well, to give you a background, UL is very engineering oriented, right? It's like 95% are engineers or have an engineering background. So it's very SJ, right? So I stuck out like a sore thumb. Now, what separates me from a lot of people, and I don't want to say like I'm so special, but I am able to understand the linear. I'm able to understand how the SJ mind works, the logical process, because I'm a strong thinker, right? So I get wanting to be logical and analytical and for things to make sense and maybe disregard the feeling aspect. I have a hard time with feelings, okay? So anyway, long story short, my wife had a baby, and I got laid off shortly before my baby was born. So what my wife said is, hey, I'm a dental hygienist. I love my job. Go find what you love to do, right? Figure that out. So over this last year, I took a year to embrace my perceptive nature, to stop trying to be such a J, right? Because I want to be an SJ. That's the culture I was raised in. I want to know what the law is and go and obey the law and do my job and be reliable and have a direction and be confident. And so I took that year to really figure out what I want to be. So one of the things that I worked on was, what is man? You know, I became very philosophical. What is man? And being home with a child really forced me to evaluate not only what is man, but what is woman. Now, I'll back this up by saying everything in my life had been quite a disappointment up until this moment. College, I thought going to BYU would be the greatest experience of my life, but I found it quite underwhelming. I thought graduated from college and um, getting a job and having real money and a house and a car and all that. I thought that would be finally like, when I'm in my groove. However, I was very disappointed. This was very depressing to me. But becoming a father, seeing my wife give birth, what the female body is capable of, holding him in my arms for the first time, seeing the miracle of life, seeing little traits of me in him. It was the least disappointing, in fact, the most fulfilling experience of my life. And so I became very obsessed. Well, you know us, ENTPs, we can be obsessed over certain things. I became very interested in the female, right? And I started to recognize many feminine traits within me. And I don't know what it is so much about the experience of me being home alone with a child and how that relates to masculinity, because I haven't gone out yet in the world. I'm actually interviewing with a few companies, developing my HR idea. If you ever want to talk about that, maybe you could help out. Maybe you come work for me. I don't know. Or we could work together. Anyway. What was I saying? Oh, but being home with a child. I didn't fit in socially with a lot of people, right? I'm more interested in feminine things. I find that I don't fit in with males. I mean, I do in a lot of ways if we're doing thinking activities. But with females, I'm more interested in cuddling up on the couch and drinking some tea and talking about a book, or taking a long walk and stopping to, enjoy the beauty of nature. I can be dominant, but I prefer to kind of sit back and really just kind of take in what people are saying, and then I really appreciate to add my 2 cents, but I certainly don't like to dominate, right? One of the things that I've found that's struggling being a male ENTP, especially a strong male ENTP, is that people want to compete with you on an intellectual level, right? They can sense there's something to this guy that is very strong, that is very, you have to watch out for him, right? And the way that males compete with that is they do a lot of one-upsmanship. And I can roll with one-upsmanship. However, it's not my preference. I feel like kind of juvenile. I don't like games, right? I like to just say what's going on and what I think and what I feel. And I find that a lot of people who are intimidated by my strong thinking process, I become a target. And not to say that like females don't. I mean, I'd be interested to hear your experience, but I have been targeted quite a bit, and it's been very painful. I felt that disconnect, and I think that's very common with people with a strong thinking preference. Now, one thing I hadn't considered until I watched your video was, I wonder if I were a female having worked under other female bosses, how that would have worked. If I would have been more successful or less successful. Like, had you been working with other female bosses or superiors, especially females who were more feeling oriented, more emotional. Okay, because I found that was one of the hardest things for me to work with females, was they tended to be so irrational, easily offended, very put off by my bluntness, right? Whereas I feel like had I been a male or a female, they might have been a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more open. They wouldn't have seen me as domineering. So anyway, I think I've said enough. This is my first video, and we ramble, I get it. Be interested to hear your thoughts, and I think you're pretty cool. See ya.